What's up guys? I'm James Withy and today we're going to talk about freehand tattoos. So in this video we're going to discuss what freehand tattoos are, when it's appropriate to freehand a tattoo, and when it's a bad idea to freehand a tattoo. Okay, so what exactly is a freehand tattoo? Before I define a freehand tattoo, I think that it's important to clarify that most tattoo artists, when they do a tattoo, they prepare a stencil on paper ahead of time and then transfer that stencil from paper to the client's skin so that they can use it almost as a roadmap for the tattoo, so they can know where all their lines and all their shapes are going to go. This stenciling method is a very accurate way to recreate an image on the body through a tattoo. A freehand tattoo, on the other hand, is defined as a tattoo that's done without this conventional stenciling method. Now there's a couple different types of freehand tattoos. The most common one is when a tattoo artist will use markers or Sharpies or something like that, sometimes even like a ballpoint pen, and he'll just draw the tattoo design directly on the skin without having any sort of like paper stencil transferring method. Now, like I said, that's the more common one. Another some would say more pure freehand method is to go directly into the skin with nothing but the tattoo needle and ink. And that method is not used very often because it provides an unreliable result, at least with most tattoo artists, and it is very, very risky. So when is it a good time to freehand a tattoo? I would say that the most common situation that I freehand tattoos in is when stenciling a tattoo is going to provide a less than ideal fit on the body. And what I mean by that is that sometimes when the fit is really important, as far as the way that it hugs up against certain like musculature or curvature on the body, a piece of paper with a stencil on it isn't really gonna like fold around some shapes on the body really conveniently. So sometimes if I'm doing like a tattoo that's gonna be on like the kneecap, for instance, I'll go ahead and just freehand it instead of using a stencil. Because as a matter of fact, one time I was trying to do like a neo-traditional flower on this dude's kneecap, and I had a stencil prepared, and we tried to lay that shit on maybe like 3 or 4 or 5 times, and no matter which angle I attacked it from, no matter which way I tried to lay it, like, you know, press the middle in first and then rub the edges outward, or start from the bottom to the top, cutting slits in it. I tried everything I could and I just couldn't get this neo-traditional flower to fit well on this guy's kneecap. So I ended up just deciding to freehand it on there with Sharpies. I had pretty much the exact same design, same shape of all the petals and everything, and the tattoo came out just as good as it would have if I had used the stencil. Another really great example of that is a tattoo that I'm going to go ahead and show you guys right now. So this girl came in with a request where she wanted really big realistic wings that were going to stretch from the top of her back, like her scapula area, all the way out onto her outside of her arms, and basically the tips of the wings, she wanted them to be like touching her elbows, so that when she held her arms open, it would look like she actually had wings on her back that were spread. As you can imagine, for this type of tattoo, it would be really difficult for me to make a stencil that would wrap all the way from her back onto her outside of her upper arm without having a bunch of really crazy like pieces of paper all like taped together real goofy like. So I pretty much told her during the consultation that the best way to do this tattoo is to freehand it, and because I had quite a bit of experience with freehanding tattoos in the past, it wasn't really too big of a deal, and my portfolio was luckily good enough to convince her to trust me, and you know, she believed that I would do a good job on it. So in this image I'm showing you guys, basically what you're seeing right here is what the beginning of the second session looked like. So on the right hand side she has an incomplete wing that pretty much has some line work, some shading, and it's totally healed up. We did one side first on the first session, and on the left side you can see my marker drawing that I drew on with Sharpies. This particular freehand session was very difficult because I had to match what I already had done on the right hand side on the left side on a totally different day. So I drew the whole right side on one day, I drew the whole left side on the other day to match it. As you can see, there are many different colors of Sharpies right here. I like to use one light Sharpie in the beginning just to kind of like scribble the foundation on and get the general shape right. And then as I become more and more sure of my drawing and its accuracy, I'll go ahead and start using darker and darker markers and tightening up my drawing until I feel like I have my final marks in, and I can pretty much just go into the tattoo with a machine confidently, knowing that I'm going to be able to execute it. Now this picture right here is the finished tattoo, and as you can see, everything healed up pretty good. Everything looks pretty even as far as how dark the shading is, the shape of the feathers, all that sort of stuff. And like I said, it took an enormous amount of trust for this girl to let me do this on her, totally freehand without any pre-made design. She didn't even get to see what her tattoo was gonna look like until she was fully committed and it was permanent in the skin. Now, in this situation, I believe that if I would have used a stenciling method instead of freehanding, the tattoo probably wouldn't have fit nearly as good as it ended up fitting. It probably wouldn't have complemented her anatomy very well, and it would have looked really stiff in my opinion if I had tried to force a stencil. Now, that's not to say that I couldn't have stenciled in this situation or that no tattoo artist could. I just feel like for me personally, when I looked at this particular project, I felt like that was the best method of attacking it, and it ended up paying off. Another situation where it's appropriate to freehand a tattoo is if the option of making a stencil just isn't available, or if you are doing a very simple tattoo with a very limited amount of time. And a really great example of that is at tattoo conventions. So when I go to tattoo conventions, oftentimes, if I'm going to try to make a stencil, the stencil machine, they'll have them at tattoo conventions, but the line form will be so ridiculously long that you have to wait sometimes half an hour just to make a stencil for a tattoo that's only going to take you 5 or 10 minutes. So if it's something really small, like a little cursive name or something like that, or if it's like a little cross or something, I'm not going to wait in line half an hour to make that stencil when I'm confident in my drawing ability and I know that I can just go ahead and freehand it on the skin and it's going to come out really great with the same degree of accuracy as if I had stenciled it. So for that reason, at conventions I freehand quite a bit more. It saves me time, it allows me to pack more tattoos within 1 day's worth of work so that I can make my money back and make it worth it for me to go to that show. And that gives me the ability to go back over and over because I'm making money every time I'm visiting whatever particular city that is. So now that I've discussed the right situations to freehand a tattoo in, or the right reasons to freehand a tattoo in, I want to discuss reasons why an artist shouldn't freehand a tattoo. It's definitely not a good idea to freehand a tattoo simply because you don't feel like making a stencil or because you're lazy. Now I feel like that is a slippery statement right there where it almost like it comes dangerously close to what I just said when I was talking about the right situations to freehand a tattoo in, where I was talking about the conventions and not wanting to wait in line and all that hippity hoopla. However, I feel like whether or not saving time is a good reason to freehand a tattoo is totally dependent on the artist's skill level in relation to the tattoo that's in question. So if an artist is 100% confident and he knows like for sure that he's going to be able to do a good job on that tattoo, then by all means it's okay for him to freehand it. But if there's even a 5% chance that he's going to fuck that up or have a wiggly line in there that he could have avoided just by making a stencil and taking that extra time to prepare, then it's definitely not a good idea to freehand a tattoo. Another terrible reason to freehand a tattoo would be if the artist that's freehanding it or if the client that's getting it simply thinks that freehanding a tattoo is more impressive. I've seen artists brag about freehanding tattoos time and time again throughout my career. It's almost as if it's some sort of a badge of honor where it's like, yeah, I did that freehand, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like the same thing as like beating somebody in a fight with one hand tied behind your back or something in their eyes. But I feel like that's an idiotic reason to freehand a tattoo. I feel like, just like I said earlier, if you can do better with a stencil, you should definitely make a stencil. And in most situations in tattooing, that's going to be the case. You're gonna want to make a stencil almost every time. Likewise, I've had clients ask me to freehand a tattoo or whether or not I do freehand tattoos because they think it's more impressive to tell like friends of theirs or people that are viewing the tattoo that it was freehand. And in my opinion, that is a terrible thing to be bragging about to your friends. I mean, at the end of the day, the quality of the tattoo is what matters most. So, I mean, who gives a fuck whether or not it was freehand? All that matters is how the shit looks as far as the quality of the artwork. I really feel like the saying, the pride comes before the fall, rings true when it comes to freehand tattoos. It's not something that you want to do out of ego, it's something that you want to do out of necessity because you have no choice other than freehanding it. So with everything we've talked about, I feel like it's safe to conclude that as a rule of thumb, anytime as a tattoo artist you are able to make a stencil, you probably should. Be wary of any tattoo artist that insists on freehanding a tattoo on you unless he has an exceptional track record and reputation and he has the portfolio to back it up. He should be able to show you pictures of freehand drawings that he's done on people prior to completing the tattoo so that you can see what the freehand drawing looks like and what the tattoo looks like, or he should have some stuff in his portfolio, or you should have, seen one of the tattoos that he's done on one of your friends or something, and they can verify like through word of mouth for you that tattoo in fact actually was freehanded, so that you can know whether or not to trust that guy doing it. There's a lot of tattoo artists out there that are actually at a pretty low skill level that, for, like I said, they think that it's impressive to freehand tattoos, and they'll insist that they do things freehand, and they're not doing as good of a job as they can when they're doing a tattoo that way. So I would be very careful about who you let freehand on you. It's really important to do your homework and know who you're letting mark your body permanently. With that said, there are some tattoo artists out there that specialize in freehand tattoos, and they do absolutely phenomenal work. Some of my favorite freehand tattoo artists are Carl Grace, Luke Palin, and Michael Rina. Rina with 2 I's, R-I-I-N-A. These dudes are fantastic at freehanding. Carl Grace I've met in person at tattoo conventions before. This guy is fucking phenomenal, and he is also a really cool dude. I would definitely look them up on Instagram and check out their work if you want to see an example of what a real freehand tattoo should look like. Matter of fact, Carl Grace doesn't even fucking do marker drawings half the time. He just goes straight in with the needle into the skin. But like I said, that is a rare case. He is a strange animal, and there really aren't a whole lot of people out there that can do the same thing as him in terms of skill level, and I would be very careful about trusting anybody that doesn't have the same type of track record that he does. If you would like to check out some of my tattoos, whether they're freehand or not, peep out my Instagram. It's @JamesWithyTattoo. And again, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you next time.